Absolutely. Well, we're already a couple minutes here past 7 p.m. Eastern time, um, and you know, really looking forward to diving deep into sales, right? And first off, I'd like to introduce you know us. So we're Carl and I, the co-founders of Cycle CPA. We do the bookkeeping and fractional CFO services for landscape and snow businesses across the country. And today, we have a very special guest. He was nice enough to take out some of the time out of his busy schedule here to join us and educate us all on sales. And so it's Neil Glatt, and he is the managing partner and co-founder of Grow the Bench. So they do online education, professional development, and peer networking for landscape and snow businesses throughout North America. Also, Neil leads the Snow Fighters Institute. So they do a lot of events, workshops, forums revolved around, the snow industry. So, and he also does some one-on-one training as well. So thank you for joining us here tonight, Neil.
Hey, my pleasure. I'm super excited to be partnering up with you guys for this and other ways to add value to all of the people who trust us to help them. So if you have questions tonight, feel free to throw them in the chat. We'd love to answer them about sales strategy, pricing, profit, whatever you want to talk about. We're here to add value tonight. So thanks for having me.
Awesome, Neil. And, I think it's great, because we understand, right? We work with over 160 landscape and snow businesses, and we understand that right about now is pretty busy, right? So it really says a lot that you're taking the time out of your day to educate yourself on this topic, especially as it relates to, holding yourself or your team accountable in regard to sales or tying it back to accounting and the financial side. So, it's great stuff. And the first thing about, your sales team or if you're running your business on your own right now, really looking within, right? And understanding that sales is pretty unique in that it does fall within your overhead expenses, but at the same time, it has an incredible influence over, being able to recoup your overhead expenses, right? So understanding that, and it's a really crucial position, and it makes it even more important to make sure that you have financial reports on a monthly basis so you can hold your sales team accountable, just as you would, your team within operations, even your administrative team, making sure that you're using clear numbers, and it's great because it's even on you're not coming at it through a biased view, right? You're coming at it through a perspective where numbers don't lie, right? So you want to use that to your advantage. And we see a lot, companies doing job costing and leaving out one of the main parts of what makes a company succeed, and that's the profit part, the overhead part. And you want to make sure that your sales team is recouping overhead, and that you're tying it back and reconciling it back to your monthly financials.
Right.
And also understand that gross margin targets may have to be different in every company, right? Because there may be different overhead, because a larger company, they may be operating more efficiently, have their own software, or have lower overhead expenses than a small business that is struggling and really doing everything by hand and different things like that. So understanding that your company is unique, and that's why it's important to use your actual numbers. It's great to have an awareness of what industry averages are, and how to use softwares and build in budgets into them, but understand your actual numbers, and that's what you want to base your decisions off of. And then, of course, all revenue not being created equal, right? So, as your sales team grows and as you're getting jobs, understanding that you could be making a good amount of sales, but that needs to be reflected as well within your margins. So keeping a close eye on that as well. And going back to the sales process, it ties close together with the pricing strategy and estimating, and as I mentioned before, recouping the overhead and using the different methods, whatever method you use, understanding that this has an enormous effect on your business. So it's something you want to make sure that you are educated in this. I know Grow the Bench, they have courses on estimating and different things like that. So it's just one example of many resources that you can utilize to make sure that you're setting up your team for success. And it could be great, right? You or your sales team, and this is what we see, especially this time of year or even earlier in the year, where you're getting a lot of projects or contracts signed. Things are looking great. It's doing even better than last year. And you can see that they're closing a lot of opportunities and you're doing really well. But that could be one example of something, and it doesn't necessarily mean it, right? But when you start to see a lot of these points align, it may be it may be that you are underpricing your work. Maybe you're not aware of what the competitors are pricing the jobs at, right? Because you may be estimating your jobs very accurately. You may be knowing your overhead, and you may know that very clearly, better than any of your competitors. But if your competitors are, and if you know what the market is charging, use that, use that to your advantage, and because if your competitors are charging more, you want to be aware of that. You never want to be undercutting yourself when you don't necessarily have to. And especially this, in today's environment, understanding the market conditions, because you could be closing a lot of jobs, and this is happening with a lot of companies. You're closing a lot of jobs, but you're not doing it in a way where your whole system and your processes and your data is updated to what the current market and the current pass-through costs are. So if your materials or your fuel prices and your prices with your vendors, even with the supply chain issues affecting your business, understanding that, yeah, you can undercut your competition, but you're most likely not going to see the margins that you saw last year, especially in today's market. Mm-hmm. Also, this is something we see, especially with newer clients, understanding that, it's great to see an increase in sales, but you want to make sure that your margin is following, and is increasing at just as fast of a rate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, many times when we're doing a financial statement analysis review with our clients, and for example, we're in May right now, so we just had our January through April meeting, reviewing the 4 months of 2022 and comparing that to 2021. And one of the things we want to see is the rate of growth for sales. Let's say that's at 30%. But then we also want to see the rate of growth of the cost of goods sold, or direct costs, which are the costs that are directly related to the job. So materials, field labor costs, equipment rentals. We want to see how fast that grew. So for the company that sales grew at 30%, cost of goods grew at 60%. So double that. That's not a good sign, because then you're retaining less per dollar. So in essence, you're less profitable in that way. So that's a key indicator that, you're growing in sales, which is great. But if you're growing at a faster rate in your direct costs, then that's not so good. So you want to revisit your estimating strategy with your sales team.
Yeah, and you can take that same approach throughout a lot of the aspects of your company. It's the beauty of looking at KPIs, not even just financial KPIs. There's KPIs within every aspect of your business.
Right.
Um, and then the last point here as well, just thinking about the mindset. And this is what we typically see for companies just starting off. They want to get any project they can based off of maybe a discount or a free deal they'll give someone. But what we see the most profitable companies doing are the ones that are very confident, have a great reputation, do great work, and price it based off of that, not based off of being the least expensive in the market. So,
Yeah.
I think it's just a shift in mindset. But like I said, a couple of these may not necessarily mean that you're underpricing, but when you start to see these different patterns and a lot of these things, kind of combine with each other, then that's when you might be putting yourself in a difficult position.
Yeah, if I could jump in briefly, one of the issues with discounting, of course, is that there's not enough profit, right? But it also means that there's not any money to go above and beyond for a customer anymore. And it also sets this expectation, right? So, if you're getting a referral, that person will probably be disclosing where you fit budget wise. And if you've discounted that, then the next person's going to expect a discount. And you could really very quickly build a reputation that you can't escape with profit, right? And I would much rather have people say, yeah, Neil's amazing. He's really expensive and you may not be able to afford him. But if you can, you're going to be super happy. And I know I am with his service, right? And it's challenging because you can't ever relax on that. Even when you want to, even if you could from your business model, you have to maintain a lot of discipline to escape that vicious cycle of discounting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another thing too is companies may not realize that a discount is an exponential effect on the profits, right? Because you can't necessarily, if you give your customer a discount, you can't, not pay your employees,
right.
15%, or you can't demand a discount from your vendors. So there's a lot of those pass-through expenses that you as the business owner have to, have to pay, right? So you want to make sure that, or understand that a discount, what that's going to do in essence is just really take your net profit away. So just to be really focused on that,
Right.
And this is just a graphic as well. Often with companies, you can kind of take a dual approach, between increasing revenue, but then also, thinking about increasing efficiency at the same time. The answer is not usually one of, only one, right? So you want to continually look at ways to optimize and, create efficiencies within your company, and understand that, yes, as accountants, we always want people to manage your overhead in a very smart way, but also understand that there is a point where there's only so much you can cut overhead,
Right.
Because then you're going to put unnecessary stresses on your team, within your systems. You're going to have people that are overworked, stuff like that. So understanding that sometimes the answer is to increase revenue and bring in a sales team and get a return on investment in that. And you can see based on this graph, your revenue jumps, 500,000, but you were able to, operate more efficiently. You didn't have to cut any overhead per se, right? But as you grew, you were managing it better. You implemented the right technology for each division, and you can see your overhead went from 29% to 23%. So, sometimes people get very caught up with the specific expenses and, some of the things that they want to try to cut. But we like to look at the return on investment perspective, and not just if you're buying a piece of equipment, right? But in all aspects of your business. If you hire a salesperson, if you hire a secretary or administrative staff, call center, anything like that. So understanding that, with revenue, it really opens up more opportunity to recoup some of your overhead expenses. And here's another illustration, and this is super important, and we really like to get this point across to companies that are in the beginning stages, before they scale up too much, because it becomes something that's, you may see your competition getting certain or making certain moves, starting another service line, getting, a piece of, equipment, but you can't see what their financials look like. You don't know if they're just trying to increase revenue and not caring about margin. So understand your numbers, right? Stay away from, thinking about, oh, my employees are too busy, or I can't handle this. Think more about, okay, how can we handle this with the team that we have? What technology maybe can we implement, right? And understand that, like in, company A over to the left, if you're a $300,000 business or a division, there's only so much overhead that could be allocated to that. So even if your operational manager is splitting his time within that division or sales team, understanding that you are limited, right, to the team. And that's why companies, when they're from, 0 to, 3-4 million in sales, they really try to take advantage of different outsourced and remote teams, fractional teams, within marketing, HR, accounting, because you don't want to hire a full-time person. It goes for the same reason that, if you're starting a new division or starting a company, you as the owner are going to be the one that's doing a lot of the sales, because you can't afford a full-time salesperson. Right. So it's that same philosophy, but understanding that with revenue, it's going to open more opportunity, right, to fill in a lot of those administrative salaries.
Yeah, usually when we're looking at a profit and loss statement for, let's say, a $300,000 a year revenue size company, there won't be any overhead salaries, because they're not going to have an ops manager, an office admin, an HR, an accounting staff full time, So to put it into perspective, what we do is, usually the companies at 300,000, they're sole proprietorships or, structured as an LLC in a way where they're just pulling money out of the account whenever they can or whenever they need it, right? At $300 here, $300 there, whenever that is needed. That gets categorized on your balance sheet, not your profit and loss, as owner's pay or owner's draw. So we take that amount and we put it back into the profit and loss statement in another report we built outside of QuickBooks, not following the accounting mumbo jumbo, right? We plug that number back in and we say, hey, this is how much you've paid yourself so far, right? How much time do you spend in the field? So usually with the $300,000 company, usually they're spending half or a little bit more than half of their time outside in the field. So we take that number, you reallocate it to above the gross profit line to field labor. The rest is left in overhead, and that's what you've paid yourself for. Office admin, HR, to be all of those things that you are as a business owner. And so that's what you want to monitor, because if you look at your profit and loss in just that way, you may say, hey, like I have my net income is really high. The percentage is really high. I can hire someone. But then when you put it into like, no, I'm getting paid to do this work, right? Then you could really look at your numbers, and it's much different than we see here in company B, where they're at 1.2 they're at 120,000, you may now have some wiggle room to hire that office admin, that HR person. And it's, again, these are, kind of rigid things that I'm talking about, right? Because maybe you want to invest in someone beforehand, before you can afford it, but that's why it's important to even take a closer look at your financials if you're going to look at that like an investment, because you want a return on that investment. I've seen it where companies make that investment and they never get that return, and now they're in a hole. So it's about keeping these overhead staff accountable, and I'm sure Neil has some insight on that for you guys later on here. So let's move on to the next slide. Here we have, though this is a company-wide budget that we build out for some of our clients. In particular, this is the sales and production budget. This is one aspect of it. But basically here you can see maintenance revenue projected for January through March.
And I'm sorry, Carl. One of the main things to look out here is taking the information, right, and how it relates to your sales team. And understanding that, okay, if this is my revenue goal, right, breaking that down into metrics that your sales team can understand, right? So how many hours are needed to, work, or, what are the amount of contracts that need to be gained for that specific month? And you as the owner, you can spread that. You can decide that you're going to take on more in the beginning of the year, or, however you do that. And you can see that under January, where it says the projected contracts to be gained, which would be 27, right? So you can come up with those, projections, but it's something that, building these things in based on the previous year's data. So looking at the historical data from last year towards the bottom of the screen, having some of that information puts you in a good position for the next year.
Yeah. And, you could, like Joe said, taking the budgeted direct labor hours for January, let's say 271 labor hours, you can communicate in that way to your sales staff, like how much labor hours are we needing to sell and so on, if that's something that you're wanting to do. And then here on the second slide, when, we go over actuals, we see, okay, so for April, did they meet their sales budget or not? This company exceeded it by 10,500. Now, were we efficient on these jobs? The direct labor hours that were budgeted were 1,000 hours. They came in at 989. So they were more efficient, right, by 11 hours. And therefore, the revenue per hour rate was higher by $11. And so it's important this is a way that you can hold your sales staff accountable to the numbers at the end of the day.
Yep. And you can see, even the resulting gross profit, what your team actually did was 4% better, which is fantastic. So, again, tying your numbers, into the actionable, KPIs and targets, and then, ultimately, making sure that you're holding your team accountable to that on a periodic basis, whether it's monthly, to make sure that you are measuring that. And here's another graphic, just to get another point across here. So looking at a company where you have the gross profit, right, towards the left hand of the screen, which is the 450,000, and the remaining amount is left over to pay your overhead expenses, salaries, and then ultimately your net profit. And if, let's say, the owner's going to stay on and continue sales, add on a $60,000 salesperson with a salary of $60,000, you can then see, all right, these are my total administrative salaries, right? Which then towards the right of the screen would be the $200,000. If I want to keep that at the same percent to gross profit, which is the 22%, what gross profit goal would I have to hit? So it would be the 900,000 over in the bottom right hand corner. So, and just to go over this again here, towards the left with a gross profit of 450,000, your total administrative salaries, right, were 22% of that, right? So for, if you are going to add on your team, right, and your total administrative salaries now to the right are going to be 200,000 instead of 100,000, then you know that in order for you to hit your margin goal, you need that gross profit to be the 900,000. So there's different ways to look at it, but you want to make sure that you are running these numbers, as you're scaling your team.
In this approach, you're backing into it. So this is your total salaries as a percentage of gross profit, not income. So like Joe said, in this example, you would have to double your gross profit to add on that $60,000 salesperson, right? Okay.
And, when it comes to sales, just some main points in regard to, profit and cash flow, with that position having such an enormous effect on it, making sure that the rest of your team is ready to handle the potential bottlenecks that could happen when you get that influx of sales. Are you getting the right jobs that your team can operate efficiently? Are you outlining your expectations to the customer? So all of these, playing a big role here.
Yeah, it's awesome stuff, and it's so important. And if you're working with Joe and Carla now, then I'm hoping you are already getting this information from them and hiring them to do that, or someone on their team. If you're not, you need this information, right? Because if you want to grow to that next level, whether that means buying that new Shine mower or that truck or that plow or that cat front end loader, or you want to bring on that next key person, whether it's an office manager or a salesperson or an ops manager or a production guy who's going to free you up to continue to scale the business, you need to be selling potentially at a whole different level of profit and scale than you have before. But if you don't have somebody telling you what that is, then how are you supposed to know whether you can sell the job for $9,500 or $10,000 or $10,500? Because the reality is you could probably get any one of those, but you need somebody to guide you and say, here's where you need to be. I was really fortunate through my career to work with a phenomenal CFO who would always tell me, all right, Neil, you really need to be getting an extra 3 million or an extra 5 million in sales this year. And you need to increase your profit 10% from last year, your sales price 10% from last year. Without that, it's really impossible to set yourself up for success for the future. My job is to help you hit those goals, whatever they are. And my experience, I started in the green industry right when I graduated college in 2009. I was in Michigan. I was selling $40 lawn cuts, like a lot of you probably have sold or maybe still are selling. And then I got into a company that only did snow removal in New England. Their name was Case Snow Management. I had a blast working with them for 7 years and got to grow that company on the sales front from about $1 million in revenue a year to over 40 million in revenue per year before I stopped. So I've sold everything, a piece of paper that was worth $40 a week, and I've sold a piece of paper that was worth over $5 million a year, and everything in between. So I'm pretty sure no matter where your company's at, I've been there for sales. and the good news is selling is exactly the same at all those levels. And if you can figure out how to put in a process, like I'm going to teach you, you can sell as many lawn cuts as you want, or you can decide to graduate up to maybe apartment buildings or commercial buildings, or maybe you're already there and you want to go to regional services. It doesn't matter what you're selling, what the price point is. The process is a sales process. And the question is not can you sell it, because anybody can sell it if your price is low enough, right? The question is, can you sell it for enough money? And in 2022, holy crap, is that a moving target, right? I don't know what your profit margin needs to be for the next 12 months. You may be second guessing what your profit margin needs to be for the next 12 months based on what suppliers are telling you. And it can be really tough if you haven't been slowly increasing your rates over the years. So let's dive in. And by the way, hit me up with questions. How do you break into the commercial market? Let's focus on the process first, Brian. If I don't answer your question, because I think we're only going for like another 30 minutes here, and I could talk about sales for like 3 days, you can email me. I'm going to put up my email on my cell phone, and I'm happy to give it to you. But first of all, a sales process is simply just a repeatable series of steps that's going to take somebody from a prospect to a customer. And you may use the term suspect. I say prospect sometimes. I maybe use them interchangeably. A prospect or a suspect is simply someone who we think could possibly do business with us. So we see a house, or we see a pharmacy, or we see whatever property. That's somebody who's a prospect. We think they may possibly be able to do business with us. At some point, they become a lead. We figure out they have a name, they have a phone number. We learn something about them. And then really critically, we have the step of qualification. Now, most people go wrong in the sales process. Well, one, because they don't have one. Two, because they skip over qualification. You may think that anybody with a lawn could be your customer. And I'm going to tell you, no way. Let me put this really in perspective right now. Would you be able to service someone that's 4 states away? Of course not, right? For most of us. Well, that's a level of qualification. But we need to qualify people on other factors too, even if they're right in our same neighborhood. And I'll talk more about that. Once somebody is qualified, we should give them a proposal. Once we give them a proposal, some of them will become a customer. And if we do it right, a lot of those customers could become referral sources. So why do we need a sales process? Well, because it's repeatable. So if we repeat the process all the time, then we get consistent results. This is why you have a process for maintenance, and you have a process for, your morning routine, and you have a process for invoicing, hopefully, right? Because you get consistent results when you follow the process. We need a process for sales, because when it's repeatable, then we get consistent results. When it's defined, then we can get measurable metrics. I'm going to show you what I mean by that. When it's really specific, then you can scale it. And when it's detailed, then we can identify where we need to improve. And when companies have a formalized sales process, they grow revenue 18% more than companies that don't. Because if you don't know what works, if you don't stick to it, you never get better. You never know what's working or not working. So the most important thing to take away from tonight is just start doing everything the same. You can always change the way that you're doing it, but you got to get a recipe or a cookbook or a scorecard so you can follow this process. Now, I'm talking about sales the way I used to do sales, which was everyday full-time job. Neil got his butt kicked if he wasn't selling at least 80% of the time. I know that's not you, right? I know that you have full-time jobs. I know that you're running businesses. I know that when I say daily behaviors, this may be a Monday morning behavior, right? So whatever the cadence is for you, no problem. Just, I want to put it in perspective, right? When I coach salespeople, which I do all the time, we're never in control of who's going to pick up the phone, right? We sit down, we dial the phone. We don't know if they're going to pick up or not. That's not up to the salesperson. But what is in our control is the number of cold calls that we make. So if I'm going to commit to dialing the phone 25 times this morning, that's in my control every single day. We're not in control of a long buying process. Oh, I need to check with my wife. I need to check with my husband. I need to check with my boss. I need to check with my coworker before we can sign this contract. And it gets dragged out. We're not in control of that. But we can ask the right questions up front. I'm going to share a few questions with you before we're done today. We're definitely not in control of the overall economy and budgets, right? We have no idea where this is going. It doesn't matter how you feel about it or what you post on Facebook. The economy is moving like crazy. But we are in control of maybe the marketing events that we attend or the trade shows. And just like we're not in control of who's going to give us a referral, we're definitely in control of how many referrals we're asking for. So I hope that gives you a little bit about my mentality. It's all focused on what's your input and your effort, because those daily behaviors determine the success. Now, this is a sample sales process. You have a very simple one. Leads, I think I reversed that. Leads, prospects, proposals, customers. We use them interchangeably, right? In this case, prospect is somebody we've talked to. I said leads earlier. But on the left-hand side, you see a very detailed process. And this is one that I did for a mid-sized company for snow removal. And we actually go through and we talk about how we're going to research people and how we're going to outreach to them and questions we're going to ask them, maybe some red flags that we look out for. We're going to talk about the appointments that we set, and then we prepare the RFP or a proposal, and then how we present it and how we complete the sale. And a sales process can be very simple. It can be very complex. You need to kind of adjust it based on your aptitude for sales, but it's got to have all these steps. And you see, even on the very far left, those 4 steps match that really simple funnel. There's no getting around making sure we hit every level of this. And Brian, to your question, how do we get into the commercial market? With this company, we just picked up the phone and called them. We wanted to plow a gas station. We Googled the gas station. We saw the phone number. We called them on the phone and said, hey, we want to do your snow. How does that work here? And this is how I started. The very first thing I did when I got to Massachusetts a dozen years ago is I Googled malls in Massachusetts, and I just started calling them. And I said, I work for a snowplow company. I assume that you have snow you need removed here. Should we talk about it? And a lot of people said no, and a couple of people said yes. And that's how I sold my first shopping mall. All right. So other lead generation methods, here's my 20 top ones. I love cold calling. Some people say cold calling's dead. I say those people are insane. That's fine. Whatever side you're on. I like cold calling. You don't have to. By the way, I don't like making cold calls. I just like the fact that it brings results. Okay. You should ask for referrals. Everybody should have referrals in their top 3. You could go to networking events, and this is going to look really different on your market. It may be a local chamber of commerce. It could be, I was just yesterday at a pancake breakfast for a local private school in town for Memorial Day. $11 for all you can eat pancakes. And there were businesses on the placemats, right? It's a networking opportunity. You may join a professional association. You may do volunteer. You may put on lunch and learns where you're educating people about something and feeding them. You could do a seminar. Obviously, we're doing a webinar right now. This is a value add, but it's also a lead generation for us, right? It's one of the things we do is we add value so that people hopefully think we have something to say and you may pay attention to our products. You could write articles potentially. You could do LinkedIn messaging or trade shows. A lot of us do social media now. Direct mail campaigns. You could do a giveaway. You could do white papers. You could go door to door. I think that's a great method as well. You could do a lot of search marketing through Google, email campaigns. Brian, Constant Contact, awesome. I use Constant Contact. I love it. Be consistent. Just if your cadence is every 2 weeks, you got to hit that. Never miss one, right? You could do a newsletter or an open house. You could do videos. Videos don't have to be fancy. In fact, there's some fascinating research that shows the lower the production quality of a video, the higher the trust of the video. And the really overproduced stuff, people don't pay attention to. So don't get caught up in, if you got a phone, you can make a good video today, right? Now, am I saying do all these? Definitely not. Here's what I'm saying. You have to be great at 3. Why 3? Well, because sometimes some don't work. So for instance, I find it really hard for networking events in November and December because everybody's off for the holidays, right? I find that cold calling was really, really tough at the start of COVID because everybody started working from home and nobody could figure out how to transfer their calls to cell phones, right? And it was all instantaneous without planning. Fortunately, when you're great at 3, you kind of don't have all your eggs in one basket, and you can maintain some different opportunities there. You may also find that you have one particular market who responds to one lead generation method, and a different market who you also want to service that responds to a different one. No matter what, do them daily. Here's my caveat. I know some of you don't sell daily. Do them weekly if you're selling weekly. If you're selling less than weekly, you're probably not selling enough. Let's be real, right? Scorecard results. I'm going to tell you what that means. Improve over time, and definitely follow through with leads. Follow through with your leads. If you're too busy to follow through, then I don't know why you're here. Because if you don't follow through, then nothing ever happens. This is the hard part, is getting them on the hook, guys. If you don't follow through, then they just vanish every time. Now, I want to talk to you about scorecarding. I showed you this funnel, this process, starting with leads, going to prospects, then proposals, then customers. You could build a scorecard for any of those 20 lead generation tools. And if you email me after, I can send you like 5 that I've already built out completely with examples if you want. I'm just going to walk you through one, which is cold calling, because cold calling is what helped me sell tens of millions of dollars of snow removal. And so I have a soft spot in my heart for it, even though I hate to pick up the phone and call people. So this sales process really simply said, we're going to cold call prospects. We're just going to pick up the phone and dial them. We're going to try and have conversations with people. Step 3, when we get someone on the phone, we're going to try and set a meeting. At that meeting, step 4, we're going to try and qualify them. We're going to make sure that they have a need and they have the budget and they can make the decision for what we're selling. Then we're going to give a proposal to people if they're qualified, and then we're going to win. That's my sales process. Now, at every step of this process, there's a conversion rate. So I did the math. Let's say my sales goal is $500,000 and my average sale is $5,000. That means I need to make 100 sales. Pretty easy math, right? So I know now if I want to sell 500,000, I got to make 100 sales if my average sale is 5,000. Then I can take that 100 sales and I can divide by my close ratio. So if I'm closing 30% or 0.3, then 100 over 0.3 means I need to send out 333 proposals because I'm going to close a third of them, right? You can use whatever close rate is. Your close rate may only be 10% today. That's okay. Plug it in. Now, if I need to send out 333 proposals, my rule for a good salesperson is not everybody who asks for a proposal is qualified for a proposal. So I may take a call with somebody and then they say, hey, Neil, this all sounds great. I'd like a proposal. I may say, sorry, Joe, I'm not sure that we're a good fit.
Wow.
Thanks, but no thanks. Okay. Right? For whatever reason, maybe your timeline doesn't match up. Maybe I don't feel like you really need what I have. Maybe we talked about the budget and you say, you know, I'm really looking to be less than 4,000 no matter what. And I know my average has got to be 5. So I get to say, hey, we don't qualify here. Now, maybe you say it. That's okay. Either way, maybe out of 10 meetings, only 6 people get a proposal. So if I meet with 10 people, 4 get disqualified one way or the other. So I'm going to divide my number of proposals, 333, by 0.6. And that means I need to take 555 meetings in order to write 333 proposals in order to win 100. You following where I'm going with this? Now, if I'm going to take 555 meetings, that means I'm going to have some phone calls. And a certain percentage of people who I talk to will meet with me and some won't. And so maybe if I talk to 100 people, only 15 agree to meet with me. Possible, right? So my meeting set ratio could be 0.15. That means I need to get 3,700 people on the phone in order to get those 555 meetings. Now, of course, when I dial the phone, not everybody answers, right? 3 out of 4 times it goes to voicemail. So to have those 3,700 conversations, I need to divide by 0.25, my answer call ratio. And that means I need to make 14,800 calls. What the heck? Don't worry, right? This is 14,800 dials, and this is for a whole year, right? And so if I have 40 sales weeks, let's say, that means I need to make 370 calls per week. And if I'm making 375 calls per week and I'm calling 5 days a week, that means I need to dial the phone 74 times a day. That's actually doable for a part-time or full-time sales guy. Really good salespeople at cold calling, if you get there, they're going to dial the phone 20 times an hour. Yeah, that damn Neil is calling again. Brian, I will tell you a story about that. I got my biggest sale of all time. I got a call and said, "Hey, Neil, it's Eileen. I heard you've been trying to get a hold of me." And I did not know who she was. I could never remember calling her. I said, "Oh, Eileen, good to hear from you. Yeah, what's going on?" And then I went back to my CRM and I looked up her name, and I hadn't called her in about 6 months. But prior to that 6 months, over the course of 6 years, I had dialed her number hundreds of times.
Oh, man.
And you're damn right that damn Neil's calling again, right? I'm going to be the biggest pain in the butt. But then as soon as you tell me you're not interested, I'll never call you again. Right? Super professional. And so it's this posturing, right? Ultra aggressive, ultra respectful at the same time. And so when you put the scorecard all together, now you can see if I make 74 calls, I do it 5 days a week times 40 weeks, 1 in 4 pick up the phone, 15% I talk to meet with me, 60% of those qualify, I win a third times 5,000 average sale. I'm only short $500. That's not bad, right? That's how the math pans out. Now, again, I'm happy to email you if you email me. I'm going to put my email up in 4 slides here. One of these for direct mail, and one of these for emailing, and one of these for LinkedIn messaging. But you have to scorecard your results. This is what, you can do this door to door for sure, right? Super effective. But if you're not tracking these, then you don't know where to improve. So if you're not tracking it, breaking down like this, and I recommend using a CRM, and if you want to get specific, go sign up for Zoho because it's free for you because you don't have that many people. If you are tracking this all the way through, then you can know, wow, actually, you know what? People are picking up the phone 30% of the time. I don't have to call as many. Or, oh, gee, my close ratio is a little low. That's where I want to improve, right? And we can work on this. Now, let's talk about sales posture briefly, and then I'll answer some questions for you. Part of the way that you sell successfully and qualify is by doing a few things differently. I teach my salespeople to be professionally disagreeable. What do I mean by that? I mean, I'm going to be ultra respectful, but I'm not going to go with everything you tell me to do. And a lot of times people think that the customer's always right and the salesperson should be kind of subservient to them, that we should show up when they tell us to, that we should write them a quote because we tell them. I'm going to say, no, you have rights. You are a salesperson. You are a business person. You need to be on the same plane as that person. And even if you're ultra intimidated because you're selling a huge commercial account or you're selling to a multi-million-dollar home where this person's made more money or inherited more money than you'll ever come close to making, and I've been there too, right? I've been in that place. Your time is just as valuable. You guys are going to decide to move forward together or to depart together. And that starts in your posturing. And so one thing I love to say when somebody asks me for something, like if you say, "Hey, Neil, can you send me a brochure about your company?" I may say, well, actually, I'm going to skip to the second one. I say, we don't typically do that. But maybe we can chat about what I have to offer, right? If somebody says, "Neil, can you meet with me Tuesday at 2:00?" I would say, "Hey, I'd be happy to do that. But before I do, can you help me understand what we're going to talk about?" I'm just going to make sure that we're not wasting each other's time before I even commit my time to rush over there, right? Professionally disagreeable. Neil, can you take a 10% discount? I don't know if we can make that work. Would you be open to a 5% discount? It's all hypothetical. It's a conversation. But most people who are amateur salespeople run back and do whatever they can to get to close as 10%. And I'm just saying, push back just a little bit. Professional, but disagreeable, right? I'm not going to do whatever you ask me to do. If you really want to get to the advanced technique here, it can all play out in the hypothetical, right? And so I've done this before. When we were submitting big commercial bids, we knew what we proposed and we knew what discount we could give, and we knew what discount we would walk away with, right? And so I've been in the position where I knew my entire team was going to be stoked. We were going to go out and celebrate if we won this, even with a 5% discount. But then when somebody's on the phone and they say, hey, Neil, we need you to take a 4% haircut and the job is yours. A lot of people who knew that they could take 5 and still be all set, even with their accountants, would be ecstatic, right? And say, no problem, we'll take 4. Be a little professional, disagreeable. And I say, hey, I don't know if we can make 4% work. That's a lot of percent. I have to go talk with my boss. He's not around right now. I can get back to you in 3 hours. Let me ask you a question. What would happen if he tells me the best we can do is 2%? And sometimes they're going to say you don't get the job, in which case we take the 4, right? But I've also had people say, Neil, if you can only do 2%, it's going to be a hard sell on my side, but we'd still go with you. And you just saved 2%, which is huge, right? We're just looking at those numbers.
Yeah.
All right. So in order to qualify, right, in order to set up that posture, ask more questions up front. So my favorite question to ask, who besides yourself is going to be involved in the decision-making process? Who besides yourself is going to be involved in the decision-making process? I love this question because the buying decision always gets stretched. And there's sometimes people with different competing values or issues that can stop you from getting the deal. But it's really, really rude to say, hey, who's really making this decision, right? Or whose approval do you need for this decision? So the very complimentary way is to put that person in the center of the buying decision, but to ask them who besides yourself is going to be involved. And then the follow-up questions are going to be, what are they looking for? What are their concerns, right? I understand your concerns, but what are theirs? What do you want? When do you want a solution to be in place, right? So if I'm selling a commercial job and they say, well, we have to have the lawn cut as soon as the snow melts, right? I'm up here in New England, so that's something we say. I'm going to say, okay, so typically that's like an April 1st day. But in order to get set up, we need 2 weeks to train everybody. In order to train everybody, we need 2 weeks to onboard everybody. And in order to onboard everybody, we need 2 weeks to hire them. That means I need your contract 6 weeks before. So 6 weeks before April 1st is going to be February 15th. So how do we make sure we're signed by February 15th in order to meet your goal of when we want a solution in place? And it's an upfront question to really reduce that sales time, right? That's important because every minute you spend following up is just wasted minute, right? You could be getting new jobs, but instead you're calling the same people over and over again. So how long will it take to have those conversations? And most importantly, how will you choose? If you get into RFPs on the commercial basis, they're going to list all this stuff like qualifications, like price, of course, like experience, like referrals. But how are they honestly going to choose? What does a 20% referral basis mean? Does it mean everything or does it mean nothing, right? And then how to cut them loose. So when people are holding you on the phone and extending the sales process and you're spending too much time with them because you have full-time jobs, because you have other obligations, you have to cut people loose. So I'd go back and review those timeline discussions and say, hey, sorry, I think we're up against it. It doesn't seem like we're going to have time for this. It's a great way to get people to commit or to go away. But people love to just kind of keep you in their back pocket as they shop for other quotes, as they drag their feet, as they generally waste your time, right? You could say, and this is so true in 2022, hey, this year's crazy. My dealers can't get any more equipment. I'm struggling to hire any more people. I have room for 4 more contracts. I'd love for you to be one of them, but if you can't give me an answer and 4 other people do, then I'm going to be out of room. So do I need to hold a spot on my schedule for you? Now you're asking somebody to commit without signing the contract. And whatever they say, you're going to be able to tell a lot by their response of how interested they are. And it's going to help push them through the sales process faster, either to a lost sale or to a won sale. You could say, hey, if we don't hear from you in a week, we're going to dishonor the proposal. Or at the end of the day, you might just have to move on. And if you can't get a hold of them, if you're in voicemail jail, right, and you can't get out, then you just might say, hey, I haven't heard back from you. I'm going to throw your proposal in the trash. No offense. Call me by Friday if I shouldn't do that. But if I don't hear from you, we're moving on. It takes discipline. I'm going to skip this because I can sell it to you. We can talk about it. So how to build trust in the sales process, because trust is what enables you to get that 10, 20, 30% more than your competition. I would work on speaking slowly. And I know I get excited and I speak really fast, and I've worked really hard. I've actually hired speaking coaches to speak more slowly. And the reason why is when people hear a fast-talking salesperson, they freak out, right? But nobody ever freaks out about a slow-speaking salesperson, right? A great way to build trust is, I'm not sure if we'd be a good fit. And that's true. One exercise I do when I coach salespeople one-on-one is I tell them, we need to make a list of people you can never sell to. And the sentence reads like this: no matter how hard we try, we can never seem to keep happy gas stations. No matter how hard we try, we can never seem to keep happy industrial locations. Whatever it is that you're striking out with, for whatever reason, your company's just not built for that, don't pursue it. I would ask more questions to understand and try and get empathy for the issues they're facing. And I would tell more stories, right? I would tell a story just like I say, hey, listen, when I've coached salespeople, here's what somebody experienced. I'm going to tell you a story right now as I talk about some of the opportunities that we have for sales development. On the right-hand side, we have these Snow Fighters Institute events. If you plow snow, you're one of my people, okay? And we have this brand, Snow Fighters Institute. We put on events. We're doing a 2-day sales forum. Now, last July, I had a guy whose very first day with this company was 2 days with me at Forum for Sales. He reported to me instead of reported to his boss, because I knew his boss, and his boss said, I just hired him. You need to teach him sales. He went back and shot me a message in November and said, Neil, I just exceeded my sales goal by $200,000 because of the workbook that you guys gave me and the training for 2 days. So if you sell snow and you want to sell more snow or higher profit snow, we've got 2 events. In 2 weeks, we're going to be at Ventrac headquarters, which is awesome. And the bonus of changing your schedule around to get there in 2 weeks is you get to come to the estimating day on June 16th, and we do a full day on snow estimating. And if you're subscribed to Grow the Bench's email list, you're going to get an email tomorrow that has a video of me doing a commercial snow estimate in less than 15 minutes from my desk. And I'm going to teach you how to do that in person, but you can learn online too. Of course, if you're busy in mid-June, and we're all pretty busy, right? Maybe you want to come to the Forum for Sales in August if you do snowplowing, which is in New Jersey at Foley Cat. Ventrac is in Ohio. But I will say the food at Ventrac is awesome. It's an in-person event, Brian, the Snow Fighters events, but they give us bacon wrapped meatloaf. That's honestly, between that and getting hands-on with Ventrac and increasing sales, it's pretty good ROI. But honestly, there is no 2 days that I do annually that are as impactful for sales as this. But if you want virtual education, I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 11 courses on Grow the Bench right now about sales. It says sales mentality and team selling are coming soon, but that's not true because they're already live and I've already had people go through them. And if you want to go check out Grow the Bench, you can watch all those courses. I'm just going to tell you, because I got a private question from somebody about pricing. We have 3 ways of interacting with Grow the Bench. For free, you can sign up for a few of our courses, including Introduction to Sales. You can go to growthebench.com, click on courses and free, and sign up for that right now. We don't even ask for your credit card. We also have newsletters and social blasts. All those other courses we do charge for. You can buy them a la carte. They're a couple $100 to get the course forever. Or you can subscribe, and we have 2 subscription levels. One is $97 a month, which includes access for 10 people to every course on the website. And then the other is our premium membership. That's $497 a month. That includes the same courses, access for 10 people, and you get 1 hour a month of live coaching with either me or my business partner, Phil, depending on what you need. And we'll help you figure that out. So I only say that because I got the question about pricing. but I want to give that to you there. Now, it's 8:02, and I think we promised to be done by 8. So this is my website. This is my email. That's my cell phone number. My plan, it's like finally beautiful here in New England. I'm going to go on my back porch. I'm going to have a cigar and a scotch. If you want to text me right now, I will answer sales questions for you for like the next hour. I got nothing going on. Okay. I'm happy to do that. Of course, you have Cycle CPA's info there as well. And I just want to say thank you guys for inviting me for this. If you want to talk about sales later, feel free to drop me an email or give me a call this week or next week or whatever's convenient. I mentioned at the beginning of the call, I don't know if everybody was on, 2022, holy crap, is sales important, right? I don't know if you're facing what everybody else is facing, but all my clients are telling me we're at capacity. We don't have enough people. We don't have enough time. The prices keep going up. Sales can cover all of those problems. If you could just start selling for more profit, all of those problems can be covered, right? I don't worry about how much gas is because I charge enough to cover gas for myself, right? For my family. But if you're on the brink, if you've been caught in that discount game, you have to worry about gas going up 30 cents. And that sucks. I don't want you to be there. I don't want you to live with that weight. I want to help you out. Brian, I'm in Massachusetts. Although I just moved here from Rhode Island, which I just moved to 2 years ago from Massachusetts. So I've been all around New England. I love New England. And if you guys want to come visit me in New England, we'll be in New Jersey. We're just up in Maine for a Snow Fighters event, but we'll be out in Ohio in 2 weeks. And man, I don't know if you guys love Ventrax like I love Ventrax, but their proving ground is great. So we'd love to have you there. All right. I'm not going to keep it any longer. We're officially after hours everywhere across the country right now, right? So, wherever you're calling from. Thank you for spending the time with us. Feel free to reach out, hop on our mailing list on our social media, and we'll keep getting you some good sales info.
Yeah, no, thank you again, Neil, for coming on. We really enjoyed it. And thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. And, have a great night.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we're going to be sharing this.
Yeah.
We're going to be sending an email to everyone with this recording as well tomorrow. So that way you can, kind of, focus in on any particular point,
Right.
In the slides. And, Neil, just as Carl mentioned, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. And I hope everyone has a great night.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
All right.